part of this talk where I'm going to talk about 5G. There's some horrible bits in it, and there's some material, supportive material about that on my website there, okay? Just talking about a new type of computing they want. This was released by the White House, and they want to build computing systems that allow us to work with robots, and the systems are going to run themselves, they're going to code themselves, humans aren't going to be anywhere near them, they're going to deter, detect, protect, and adapt, and they're going to be used for everything. So basically it's Skynet. They're also going to have autonomous capabilities, they're going to be human-machine augmented capabilities, and they're going to reverse engineer us, because they want to create this thinking thing that's going to run it all, and they're going to have the designs up large scale within, say, 10 to 15 years, probably 12 years away now. They were going to bring in a social credit system in China, and it's a bit like a Facebook system, where if the government likes you, it's great. If they don't like you, you get punished. That's already started this month, I think. They're bringing in the bans, and that's the beginning, and you can imagine where the punishment's going to go from there. I talked about loads of scientists, loads of doctors. This was one guy, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I didn't agree with him because he wanted to inject embryos with seeds of self-growing computers. So when your baby's born, it's already a computer, okay? He's an English professor. I went onto his Twitter page, and that was his Twitter page. I'm not quite sure what all that's about, but it's called wetware, and loads of people are talking about wetware. This guy here is the public face. He's leading the direction in the world, so he's basically deciding where all our futures are and our kids' futures are, and he says he wants to upload your consciousness into the web. They've already started a company this year. Unfortunately, they've got to kill you first, which is not that great an idea. If anyone says this to you, run a mile. You're going to see over the next 10, 20, 30 years, they're going to be showing you these incredible virtual worlds where everything's great and you can live in it. Don't believe it, okay? It's a very good way to reduce the population. AI is not all smooth sailing. You've got this a doctor here saying, look, it's not that great, and we've still got problems with it, so don't get me wrong. Someone's got to actually build this stuff, but nevertheless, at the moment, this is roughly where we are. We're in control, just about. AI is underneath us. You've got blockchain coming in, 5G, because you need this massive bandwidth to get all this information on the web. You've got social media, because you need the social side to move along with the technological changes, and then the Internet of Things, where everything's got to be labeled and represented on the web. Okay? It's rapidly going to become that. We are going to be removed from the picture. Social media is becoming citizen media, and China is the template, really, for the rest of the world. This is the guy, we talked about this guy from the Royal Society of Arts, which I thought was a benign, little, lovely organization. How wrong was I? They talking about basic income. This was a pilot in Scotland they were running, and he was saying it should be radical and world-changing. It's about giving everyone a basic income, which sounds fantastic, but it's not. Because like he said, it's a starting point. It's a beginning of a social contract, and then we want to start talking about how you own land and how you own things. And reality, my view of this is, you won't own anything, okay? You'll have no power, you won't even have power of your own privacy, okay? So I do not believe it's a good idea. I showed you some documents showing you that. The studies show that you'll be poorer on basic income, and the newest thing we've got at the moment is universal credit, and universal credit definitely means you will be poorer, okay? So we were pretty accurate on that. Other people said, look, when we bring this basic income in, some of you are going to have to undergo training. We need to be educators and community organizers, and it will be coupled with socio-educational training. We've all heard this before. Begins with com, ends with ism, it's got UN in the middle. Right. Then you had these guys like Professor Parrish here saying, well, you know what, if you speak English, you need to be taxed, because poor people in third world countries have got to learn it. And this is all about control. It's about controlling everything and controlling language. The next shot has just come in, the pronouns have gone. So now you've got to use ze and they and her, and already I think in a couple of the universities in England, they mark you down if you don't do it. In the States, there's legal backing to this. You will be fined if you don't do it in certain places, I think Canada and certain states in America. I've got nothing against anyone. I'm classical liberal. If you want me to call you ze or zer, I've got no problem. But I think this is dangerous for all of us, because we're not going to be able to speak to each other soon. I'll show you that in a second. And of course, mum and dad's got to go. That's pretty obvious. That's the next thing's got to go. This isn't gender equality, it's gender destruction, okay? And I've been saying that for many years. But what about literature? All the world's a stage and all the men and women are merely players. Is that next to go? What about art? The woman clothed with the sun. Well, that's sexist. What about poetry? The mother's return. Well, mother and father's going to be removed. What about all the songs with mum and dad in it? What about all the songs with boy and girl, and I love you, and let's get married, and all the normal things around gender? You watch. Some of those big organizations that you know who runs them, they're going to sue a radio station. You just watch. And when they do that, the rest will fall. Because people are generally cowards. They won't stand up. Well, that has to change, because we do have to stand up. And this is not about being equal. Okay? It's got nothing to do with that. It's about we aren't going to be able to communicate with each other. All right? And it's a very powerful tool, this. And the problem is, once you start pulling that thread, okay, the whole thing's going to come undone. But classical music's okay, isn't it? Beethoven? It's a very powerful tool. Apparently he's a chauvinist. That'll have to go. It was a lot easier in the olden days, wasn't it? But you know what, Dad? Come on, Dad, you've got to come out. Put this chip in your head. Why don't you put this device on so that when you go out, it will read your thoughts and it will translate what you're going to say in a gender-neutral way. You can just imagine this, the future of transhumanism. They're already starting the research, reading the thoughts, actually being able to pick out the words from your brain. But this is extremely concerning, considering they're about to roll out 5G. Once you give scientists all this technology, they will use it. This was using similar technology to create permanent crowd surveillance, so they can monitor you for disease. And they said, and this was an idea, they said, well, this is a 2018 paper, they've already got a proof of concept using drones. Apparently they've done this with a drone, and the Gavi organization, which is Bill Gates' organization, has said we need this technology to track who receives vaccines. Already in Africa, they're tracking people with drones to ensure they've been vaccinated, and also using chips in necklaces for African kids. I don't agree with this, I'm sorry, okay? But all the lovely organizations are sponsoring the ID 2020. We mentioned this last year. You've got to all have a unique ID, because you've got to be tracked. Here's all the kids being tracked by the UNHCR, and all the different organizations feed all their information together, and you're tracked on this blockchain from when you're born to when you die to ensure you get all the vaccines you need. Have a listen to this.
It lights up really nice.
Jose Lugo says these tall metal towers quickly popped up after Brooklyn Battery Tunnel toll booths came down.
We don't really know what's the purpose of this.
It's a $100 million MTA project full of secrecy, with 18 of these for the tunnels and bridges. So what are they exactly?
Are you saying you can't comment to me? You know,
that's the MTA's man in charge of bridges and tunnels, Cedric Fulton, dodging our questions.
Not even later can we talk to you about it, or can I make it?
Some MTA board members, including New York City Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg, say they know too little about the towers, even with about half the money spent and some of the towers up.
A lot of the board members felt like they didn't have all the details they would have wanted, myself included.
Residents who say they suspect there is much more going on with these towers than meets the eye wonder, will they ever know what's going on inside them?
I'm going to guess it's probably not just a decoration.
It's a bit mind-boggling that the MTA is approving $100 million for what appears to us to be big decorative pylons.
John Caney is leader of the watchdog group Reinvent Albany.
What we're asking for is transparency from the MTA.
We demanded answers from MTA Chairman Joe Loda.
Some of your own board members say they don't know the specifics.
The base of these new pieces that are going up include whatever fiber optics are necessary for those Homeland Security items.
In other words, anti-terror technology. Could it one day include facial recognition? We don't know. He won't say.
I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
So watch as more of these expensive towers rise, with mystery tucked away inside them. In Lower Manhattan, Dave Carlin, CBS 2 News.
This is one woman's experience of living on the top floor under cell antennas for 2 months.
It started with my daughter. She initially got a rash on her leg that was sort of unexplainable, and when she was trying to explain to me what it felt like, she kept saying it was kind of funny because it wasn't hurting inside or on the skin. She said it was hurting in the skin. And then a few days later she got another rash on her arm, and then another small kind of stranger rash, and it was the same thing. And then one day in the kitchen she was holding something and she dropped it because she said it felt like the blood in her hand went cold and in a wave along her hand to her fingertips, and then her hand stayed numb for about 15 minutes. Some more of the symptoms include a sort of hissing in my ear, in particular when I'm in my apartment, but for about 3 days, anywhere I went, it would just sort of come in. I kind of felt like an antenna, and I'd sort of kind of go like, trying to find the place where the hissing or the buzzing stopped. I've not slept in my apartment since last Saturday, so a week ago now, and the buzzing went away after about 3 days, and also the feeling of tingling all over my body slowly started to go away. But I have noticed that whenever I'm in other buildings now or anywhere close to, I don't even know what, because I was never sensitive before. I'm no Luddite. I have computers. I have all the stuff that most of us have, and I've never been sensitive at all. But now wherever I go, I'm feeling the same as I felt in my apartment, feeling dizzy and nauseous and a sort of a metallic taste in my mouth, headache and pressure on my head, and just feeling like I want to sort of faint or throw up. And that's wherever I go now. So I found myself becoming increasingly sensitive to my own computer and my own cell phone in ways that I never was before.
I introduced these guys quickly last time, called Cosmism. These people kind of brought this kind of religious cult into Silicon Valley. And this is the point when Silicon Valley started to get involved in AI, okay? And listen to one of the guys, Geordie Rose, who has invented part of the developer of the quantum computer, which is used to connect to other dimensions, according to the literature. And also, their computers used by NASA and by Google, where they're developing these AI thing. Have a listen.
I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the U.S. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
Now, he is in favor of AI. His company makes the only quantum computers. This stuff is going to be a shock, I'm telling you that. We are very, very close to this now.